I got one question for you. Why did it take so long? 5 whole years. Seriously? You're telling me it took 5 years and now we're learning that, hey, all the information was there. It was all in the files. Nobody just bothered to check it. I'm getting a little suspicious here. Just gonna say welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Trish Regan. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like. I'm watching your comments in real time. So careful what you say. Careful what you say. I want to go first as we recognize the seriousness of this. Just amazing, amazing news on this attacker, alleged attacker, I should be careful to say, being caught. Wow, the pipe attacker that they've been looking for, right? For 5 years nearly. Dan Bongino was the first to get the news. I want you to hear him in today's press conference because this came out moments ago, and I'll tell you, he is pretty darn pleased. Very, very pleased. This was a very important topic to him. Let's listen in.
Patel or Deputy Director Bongino, can you describe, was there a particular moment where the evidence is coming in and it's starting to look like progress is being made? What was the moment that you knew that you were on the road to solving the case? If anyone could take that.
Dan, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I was smiling at you because I certainly remember the moment. Darren remembers it too. He said, "Are you sitting down?" Called me on the phone. I said, "Oh boy, why? Is this bad news?" And he said, "I think we got him." What exactly that tip was, we're going to have to pass on that for right now while we're still, obviously we're in the prologue of a long book. This is just the beginning. This is not the end of the investigation, as you all well know, having reported on these for a long time. There's interviews to be conducted. The search warrant processing scene is not even done. So we're at the early stages, so that's the only reason I hesitate to tell you what the exact tip was. But yes, that was absolutely the moment, and it was due to the diligent and incredible work of a team in the Washington field office that came in and just scoured through this over and over and over and over again.
In general, was it forensic? Was it a phone call? Was it something about a vehicle?
We'll just leave it generally forensic evidence. Yeah, it's fair enough to say.
Excuse me, how long ago that was?
I'd rather not say because of the ongoing interview process.
Okay. All right. He'd rather not say because, he's still suspect at this point, right? They've got to go through all the proper channels. But we've got the DOJ coming out and announcing that they are charging this guy, Brian Cole is his name, with what they believe him to have done. He is the suspect right now, the person that may have planted those pipe bombs, which could have gone off and caused a lot of damage. Thank goodness that they did not. That was just ahead, of course, the Republican and national, or rather I should say it was at the Republican and Democrat National Committee's offices, and it was just ahead of the January 6th ordeal. So Brian Cole, Jr. of Virginia is his name. He may have had anarchist leanings, you think? Gee, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb. Maybe the guy was a nut job and had some anarchist leanings. I'm just really troubled that they had all of this information, and we're going to hear this from Kash Patel himself in just a moment. They had all this information, and they had it for 5 years, and it was all sitting in a file. It's not like Dan and Kash went out and did anything grand or new or different. They just went and looked back at what they actually already have, and that's an important distinction here. And think about that, because now we're being led to the next question, which was, why were the idiots at the Biden administration so unwilling to go there and to do the proper due diligence to figure out how to solve a crime? Here's Kash Patel explaining that.
Any new information. What we did, an investigation spearheaded by the deputy director and the ADIC of our Washington field office, brought in a new team of investigators and experts, re-examined every piece of evidence, sifted through all the data, something that the prior administration refused and failed to do. As a result of that, we generated numerous investigative leads, executed multiple legal process with our U.S. attorney partners, and came to this conclusion today. And that is why we were able to safely secure this individual into custody. Remember, we are dealing with an individual who is alleged to have made bombs. We cannot do this sort of takedown in haste because it endangers the lives of law enforcement. And this FBI will never allow the lives of law enforcement and our prosecutors to be put in jeopardy.
So, again, I just don't, I think that we can hypothesize about this a little bit. I can tell you, I think that they were really more preoccupied with Marsha and Ted Cruz's phones. With Marsha Blackburn, who are you talking to? We got to map out the MAGA movement so that this guy can never win again. That seems to me, I mean, there are more sinister versions of this where people go down the rabbit hole of saying maybe, this was somehow deliberate, etc. It was designed as a distraction tool, and we've heard those theories. But again, I'm just going back to, okay, you had the file, you had all the information, you didn't bother to look into it in the way that you should have because, hey, it was all right there, I mean, they're giving new meaning to the term the B team, the Biden team, okay? The B team couldn't figure this one out. They had all the video. They had video of him in a Nike Air Max Speed Turf set of sneakers, which apparently is like super rare, these sneakers. And so that in and of itself should have been something that they could have gone on. Forensic evidence, if you were listening to Dan just moments ago, was ultimately what they found. So they just pieced it together because they did some good old-fashioned police work. Imagine that. The guy lived in a rather nice house. This is where they got him today, at his house there in Virginia. So apparently an anarchist. We don't know too much about him in terms of his line of work, but we do know that he kind of kept to himself, and we know that courtesy of the neighbors. The neighbors telling the New York Post, he seemed kind of quiet. He used to go back and forth to 7-Eleven with his dog. He used to wear his headphones all the time, and he'd walk right past you, almost like he didn't see you. So apparently kind of antisocial, didn't like people, but they're all still, nonetheless, as one would be, very, very shocked. Very, very shocked. And it's like, what has he been doing since then? I'd like to know. He's been sitting there for 5 years, and he was known to the FBI, apparently. Again, they had, as we understand it, some of his information in the file, and yet nothing happened. Nothing happened. I'm looking at some of your comments on that to see if you guys have any sort of ideas on why we think nothing happened. I do think legitimately they were much more interested in other things like Marsha and Ted's phone records. They found 400 people in their Arctic frost investigation, all connected to MAGA. That was their big J6 investigation. They didn't care about this one so much. I'll tell you, everyday Americans care about this a lot. But I will also say this. Bongino knew something was coming. I want to go to him, sitting down with my friend and former colleague Maria Bartiromo in, I believe it was May of this past year. And he sounds kind of cryptic here. He can sometimes be that way, but his message was, we're working on it. And we're going to find out who this guy is, and you will know. Watch.
To get to the bottom of something like January 6th and the pipe bomber case, for example, you need three things. You need people, you need information, and you need people with information. I'll allow the public to put that together and just wait, and you'll see. Nothing we're doing, nothing is by accident.
All right. And by the way, they're not leaving anything, any stone unturned, if you would. They actually want to know what happened. And you think about it, even with my boyfriend, Charlie Kirk, we got that answer pretty fast now, didn't we? Because maybe just it takes a little old-fashioned police work and a little less sort of intel kind of stuff, right? Like they're always going after this intel to try and paint the other side as bad instead of actually doing their job and like solving crimes and keeping the American people safe. I want to go to MSNBC. Boy, they're having a hard time reporting on this one, but this is MSNBC this morning on the news.
Ken, this case has been cold for a long time, a source of real embarrassment that no arrests had been made. But here we are, 5 years later. What more can you tell us?
That's right. The FBI fanned out this morning and made this arrest at the suspect's home, as we understand it, and the suspect is a male. There is a sealed complaint charging this suspect with placing those two bombs in the hours before the January 6th riots. But authorities are telling us they don't understand or have a motive. They do, though, have some information connecting this suspect to anarchist writings. So it's not clear at all that it was connected to the January 6th attacks after all the speculation that perhaps it was intended as a diversion. Remember, these were real devices, 2 pipe bombs placed outside the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters in downtown Washington, D.C. They could have gone off, but luckily they did not. And as you said, this was a massive investigation, one of the biggest in the FBI's history. They sifted through thousands and thousands of pages of records. They tried to compare credit card records for purchases of items that were used to make the bomb with cell phone records of people who were around the site that night. Remember, they had video, but it didn't show a clear facial image. They had a height of the suspect, 5'7" or 5'8". They had a unique shoe, a Nike shoe that was not sold widely that they tried to use to identify the subject. They even issued a $500,000 reward for information leading to arrest, and they had almost no leads.
You know, I'm just reading your comments here. They had no leads. I mean, there was talk of maybe it was a woman, maybe it was, we heard a lot of people that thought it was kind of an inside job. We don't know anything really about this guy, like what he does for a profession, et cetera. The only thing we've got right now is that he seems to be kind of an anarchist. And I just want to know why it is that nobody went with any of this back when they could have. Like, why is it taking 5 darn long years? I want to go to some of the comments that you guys have because they're interesting. And Piece of My Mind made one, and Cat Crazy, I think, as well. So let me try and open some of that up, see if I can get this onto the screen for you. But this is, I mean, listen, it's a huge win. Huge, huge, huge win. I know I see Billy Rice saying, that a lot of people had been talking about whether or not it was a woman, et cetera. And then we get this news that it's not a woman. Although who knows these days, right? A woman. I don't want to confuse anyone or myself for that matter, but with all the trans nonsense. Anyway, Billy Rice is saying police woman, pipe bomber. This is not what they've come up with. They've come up with a guy named Brian Cole, who was an alleged anarchist, and it is a win for Kash and Dan. I know that you guys are frustrated with these two, but I don't know Kash that well. I do know Dan because I worked with him at Fox, and I like him a lot, and I trust him, and I respect him. So for whatever that's worth, I don't think he's trying to pull a fast one on anyone. He looked pretty happy when he found out the news that they have gotten this person. And I think that it's sort of amazing because there was a reason why they didn't decide to dig in deeper. There is a reason why we've been 5 years. For whatever reason, you had a lot of incompetency there and a lot of focus on the wrong stuff, which just killed MSNBC to have to admit earlier this morning. Listen in.
What's interesting here is that we're told by 2 sources close to the case that the information used to put together the case against the suspect was sitting in FBI files and was gathered as perhaps in 2021 or 2022. So could have been used to make an arrest a while ago, and they re-examined this case. And that's going to be a partial vindication for Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who has been exhorting the FBI to take another look at the evidence in this case. What it doesn't do, though, is stand up the bizarre theories that Bongino was expounding as a podcaster when he...
Okay, so they got to get their dig in there for Bongino, right? They're going after Hegseth, they're going after Kash, and now they got to go after Bongino because they didn't like how Bongino was questioning all this. Bongino was naturally questioning this because he's sort of like, how can you not find this? How can you guys not figure this out? This kind of feels sort of important to know. You had somebody trying to take down the DNC and the RNC, and we don't know anything. This was very important for him to solve, and it turns out it was there maybe all along. Let's go back.
Trying to suggest that this was an inside job and that the FBI was covering up what it knew. There's no evidence of that. As you know, this case has been the subject of right-wing conspiracy theories, and just recently there was a story that tried to suggest that there was a particular woman was the suspect based on gait analysis. That's not the case. She's not the suspect, and her lawyer is saying she's completely innocent and has nothing to do with this. But again, this arrest appears to solve a 5-year mystery and ends one of the biggest investigations, if these allegations are proven, in recent FBI history, guys.
Wow. I'm looking at what Cat Crazy is saying, and I know it's hard to read this, right? Let's put it right over this legal analyst or DOJ reporter, whoever he is, from Ms. Now. Anyway, Cat Crazy Sam saying they were trying to blame it on MAGA or Trump and use it as part of the fake insurrection narrative. You know, I'm going with you, Cat Crazy, because I think that they really didn't want to come out and actually solve this because it was supposed to be part of, okay, crazy MAGA, etc. I think that that's actually kind of plausible. I mean, here's what we know right now. They had a file. They had all the information in it. All Kash and Dan did was go back and look at the file that was there. And what do you know? Presto, we actually have the thing solved after 5 long years. So that is pretty troubling. And this is somebody that was known to the FBI, but for whatever reason, they decided not to go after this person until now. And I think that they're going to have a hard time sort of explaining away, if you would, to everyone how bad they really were at their jobs. But the reason they were so bad, let's face it, guys, is for one reason. They had one motive and one motive only, and that was to make sure that Donald Trump never won again. Never, ever won again. The Arctic Frost. I mean, they were so busy going after Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn. Chuck Grassley has come out with a whole bunch of stuff. And don't forget, yesterday we reported that Jack Smith's now been subpoenaed. He's going to have to answer to some of these things because they were just spying. I don't know how else to say this. I mean, they were spying. This was a metadata collection that was enormous. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of phone records and 400 people that they were targeting. It's outrageous. Ted Cruz was making the point that, they could have, the phone companies said, hey, I'm not going to go along with that court order. But in some cases they did. Apparently AT&T did and Verizon did. And this is a big deal. Like, this is Biden's Watergate, effectively. Some of you have seen this before, but it's worth remembering in light of us learning that they had all this information on the alleged pipe suspect, but they didn't go with it. I'm guessing because they had bigger fish to fry, like, Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn and anybody associated with MAGA.
Arctic Frost is Joe Biden's Watergate. Merrick Garland was a fundamentally corrupt attorney general. Jack Smith was a fundamentally corrupt prosecutor. This was a political enemies list from the beginning. 197 subpoenas for 430 Republican entities and individuals. That is an absolute and egregious abuse of power.
Wow. So they ignored a real crime because they were too busy, in my estimation, going out there trying to, we're not supposed to use TAP, I guess, what do they call it? Logging people's phone records. And that's really troubling because it shows where their priorities were. And by the way, this continues to be their priorities. Just look at what's going down with the second strike and the attempt at trying to take out Pete Hegseth and the attempt in so doing trying to take out one President Donald Trump. What do you think this Intel video with the quote-unquote seditious six was all about? Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, but guys, it's coming to light even on that front that you got no they're there. No, they're there. All right, and think about what they did and what they still want to do. I mean, over the however many years that they had, right? It feels like they were trying to cancel everybody for, I don't know, going all the way back to 2016. I had to live through all that. Hey, I'm living proof. I'm here. I'm still here. And I'm still standing. And by the way, it's way better over here. Let me just tell you, reminder to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. You can also check me out on Spotify as well. But this is way better over here because I actually get to say what I want and say what I mean. But I think about what they were trying to do with canceling everybody, all while leaving real crimes unsolved. The banking is a great example. Just a quick shout out to our friends over at Americans for Free Markets. Yeah. 4 free markets. I'm actually going to put them on the screen because you should check this out. I've partnered with them on this because I feel very, very passionately for free markets. freemarkets.org. It is really important that the other side not get in, because I know what they want to do. You know what they want to do. But listen, if they do, maybe we can actually prevent it if we do something right now so that people don't get canceled again without access to bank accounts. You had regulators breathing down these banks' throats, telling them, you can't have this one, you can't have that one. God help you if you were on that 400 list, right, of the MAGA people that had talked to Marsha Blackburn or Ted Cruz at any given point. It was game over for you. And look, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that went through this. So they were trying to close Americans' bank accounts. And, fortunately, we have the president now saying, yeah, that's not going to happen again. He's got an executive order, but I'm going to tell you guys, it's going to need a little bit more. We need Congress to get involved. We need Congress to have regulations there that build on the momentum of the president to make sure that we have these enacting, lasting, meaningful reforms. Congress should be working with the administration to fix these outdated laws, for goodness sakes, and actually increase transparency, increase accountability, and make it so that you don't run the risk that your bank's going to just shut you off because they have to, because, the team in charge, Kamala Harris, doesn't like you very much. Biden doesn't like you very much. Americans for Free Markets is calling on Congress right now to advance these critical reforms and to strengthen President Trump's leadership on fair access to financial services. You can learn more at forfreemarkets.org. So I encourage you to go there. Portions of the Trish Regan Show are sponsored in part by our friends over at Americans for Free Markets. It is a very good cause. So go check that out. But just know that, they had their agenda. They had their priorities. And I don't think it had anything to do with keeping Americans safe. It was just keeping America safe from Trump, keeping America safe from MAGA. And now they're trying it all over again. What do you think the seditious six thing was all about? Just a way to try to undercut the military's power, try to hurt Pete Hegseth, to hurt Donald Trump, and to sow discord and dissatisfaction among our troops. Unbelievable stuff. This is not normal. I've told you before, historically, it's not normal. This has never happened in the history of the United States, and we've been through some rough times. I mean, you can go all the way back to the Civil War. You didn't have people preemptively doing what these guys did. Well, now, it turns out the second strike that they were trying to get Pete Hegseth on, it turns out that the admiral that ordered that, Frank Mitch Bradley, by the way, they were all like, Pete's burying his guy. Pete didn't bury his guy. He came out and defended his guy. So they're saying that this was illegal. You had these JAG attorneys getting together saying, yep, illegal. You can't have a second strike. But now it seems that Admiral Bradley's testimony basically refutes all of the Democrats and the liberal media's second strike analysis. And that's what's coming out. Wall Street Journal has the story, commanders to tell lawmakers that survivors of boat strike were actively continuing their drug mission. This is not being reported anywhere. Well, actually, in fairness, I guess ABC News wound up having to do this story. This killed ABC News to have to report on this, for goodness sakes. The last thing they wanted to admit was that there were survivors on that boat strike that were actively continuing their mission to bring those illicit substances right here to the United States of America. But they did. Here's Martha Raddatz talking about it. And I included Jesse Waters' reaction, which is kind of priceless. Let's take a quick look.
Tonight, new information. According to a source familiar with the incident, the two survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice.
This backs up the entire second strike.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't.
Okay, Eric, I'm just going to jump in for a second. You heard her say they had a JAG officer there giving them legal advice in real time. Holy moly. So what was that all about? Okay, we're going to take out the head of the Pentagon, the Department of War. We're going to take out Donald Trump effectively in the process. And now it seems that there was actually a JAG officer giving them legal advice in the room at the time. And they took out the boat, again, with a second strike, because there were survivors on board that were trying to salvage the drugs. And there was concern there was fishermen nearby that were going to come and help them. And so that kind of actually pokes a really big hole in the story that the left has been feeding us over and over again. And I got to tell you, it's unbelievable. Like we are literally at war with each other here. Anyway, I want to go to Stephen Miller for his reaction. Take a listen.
Still clearer than that. The mission is take out the boat, stop the drugs, keep this vessel and its cargo from reaching our shore using lethal means. And our amazing military, the heroes of the United States Armed Forces, did exactly that. President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and this entire government are committed to finally using our military to defend our people, our borders, our family, our culture, our history, our heritage, to defend the United States. We're not going off running around the Middle East trying to build democracies in caves and deserts and in distant sands that have never known democracy. We're using the military to protect American security, American prosperity, American lives right here where we live, where our children live.
Yeah. You know, the president has said that to me in the past. Like, he's like, all these people in the Middle East, they're going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and they're going to fight forever. And you know what? We're going to go in there and do this, that, and the other, and they're going to keep on fighting. And they've been fighting for thousands of years, and they're going to fight for thousands more. So I think his priority is keeping Americans and America safe, which actually is what it should be about, right? I mean, isn't that kind of logical? And you don't want all this stuff coming into the country. So why then are the Democrats so weaponizing the intel arm and trying to gin up discord in the military? I think that's pretty concerning. Meanwhile, they get this story. This came out yesterday at Pentagon. Investigator is faulting Hegseth for using signal to discuss military strikes. I get it. You know what? Like, you know, it could happen to anyone. I'd also say maybe it was deliberate. And by the way, why is our military and our CIA and the entire deep state saying, hey, go ahead and use intel, like, forgive me, signal? Like, why couldn't they actually have given him something special rather than they told him to use signal and somebody else put that chat room together? Anyway, they are trying desperately to go after him. But can you have a second strike? You know, if you think that there are people on board that are going to still be coming towards you, and then I would imagine you have that ability. I'm not a military expert. We talked about this yesterday, but I'll tell you what, Dan Crenshaw is, Jack Keane is, General Jack Keane, phenomenal guy, wonderful, wonderful man, and a straight shooter and not political. And he's on staff there now at Fox News, and he was when I was there as well. And one of the people I really trusted the most. I mean that, really, really trusted. And he told the team at Fox News, yeah, this is standard operating procedure. Listen to this.
So General Jack Keane, who we all respect on this program,
good friend of mine,
said that this is not a war crime. This is standard operating procedure. So you have a target, whether the target's a boat, whether it's a tank, a facility, or a person, or some combination. 25% of the time, there's a re-attack. 25% of the time, they double tap. So in this case, what happens, they hit the thing with a missile, and then they examine the aftermath. And the aftermath shows all the kilos of the cocaine are still sitting on board on the top of the water. So what does that mean? You can come grab them and still distribute it into the United States. So they called in a second strike. Kaboom, they sunk it with the contraband. Is the Democrat policy now, for every operation, you're only allowed to use one missile? So you can only use one missile, and then you have to stop everything, and you have to send in the Coast Guard and helicopters an hour or 2 hours away and make sure everyone's okay. That's ridiculous, and that would never happen. Because in 15 minutes, they're going to be on a different boat to Miami. The Democrats are such hypocrites because Obama dropped 16,000 bombs in 1 year on one country, Syria. He was double tapping the bejesus out of those people. He hit a wedding. A wedding. No one said anything. Now, why is it okay if you can go after a pickup truck in a desert, but you can't hit a boat in the Caribbean? The real reason is Trump has now designated these people as terrorists. And when you do that, you change the rules of engagement. And they don't like that because they want to do the same thing that we've been doing for decades. They just want to continue to lose the war on drugs. Trump's not going to lose. Trump's actually fighting it. And how's this
I don't know why that
saying
is. Like,
that
I mean, why are they so
narco-terrorism-
upset about this? You saw Rand Paul claim that he's worried that this is going to turn into something. This is like a precursor for Venezuela. It's possible. But by the way, it used to be that the Democrats wanted to change the regime in Venezuela as well, because I think we can all agree that it'd be nice to have some friends down there instead of foes, right? And you don't want China and Russia running around, and the oil fields are pretty valuable. We could probably do something with them. So if this is a precursor to going in and doing something in Venezuela, what, you're going to take out Pete Hegseth now? Because you don't want that? When you used to want it, you used to want that all day long. Nancy Pelosi sat up there with Juan Guaido. Woohoo, this is the guy we back. It's sort of bizarre to me. And you don't want to tackle this war on drugs? Apparently not, because if you listen to the Democrats, it's just those poor people. It's not their fault. It's not that the drug runners, you got to have some empathy for them, regardless of what it means for our population and our kids. It's apparently our fault. I mean, this is like the DEI equation thing inverted in some grand way. Listen to this Democrat on CNN or Ms. whatever. I told you I can't tell them apart anymore now that they have new branding.
You know, one of the factors that drives use in the United States is demand. And most narco traffickers are not in those boats. They pay people to do that. And usually people who are not significantly involved with narco trading, it's the way they make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, they got to make a living too, for goodness sake. Come on. So this whole second strike thing has turned into a way for them to gin up a coup. That's my estimate on what's going on right now, because I would just say that the rhetoric that I'm hearing out of the left, at least within the last 24 hours, is getting more and more and more bizarre, to the point where I think Senator Mark Warner is trying to call for a coup. I mean, I'll play this for you. We talked about this yesterday. I would hope that the news that's been reported and that Admiral Mitch Bradley is delivering, that there was a need for a second strike and that they had JAG backup in the room, the legal authority, it was declared. Pete apparently wasn't even in the room when they did the second attack, but this is getting bizarre. Listen to this guy. Oh, gosh darn it. Well, we heard it yesterday. I'm going to paraphrase it, all right? Senator Mark Warren went on CNN and basically said that we need to rely on the military to not carry out orders like Pete Hegseth or the President of the United States might want. And I'm like, what is going on? What are you trying to do? Are you actually trying to orchestrate a military coup against the President of the United States when he's done nothing illegal? Like, what the heck is that about? Sorry, we just had a different lower third on there. That's my commentary from the other day. You may have seen I'm not too happy with Pam Bondi because of the call me stuff. Let's see if she can redeem herself with this one. They just delivered it to her on a silver platter. I know we're talking about statute of limitations. I saw that in one of the comments from you guys. And yes, you're right, peace of my mind. One of the greatest benefits of being over here is that I can actually talk to you guys in real time. It's why I always go live, even though, maybe it would be better not to, because we'd have a more polished show if I did not go live. But I'm like, no. I want to see everyone. I want to talk to everybody in real time. This is the fun of it, right? Like, it wouldn't be as much fun if I couldn't actually talk to you guys and see you guys. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about being over here, as Peace of My Mind pointed out, rather than a network. But, I haven't been too happy with Pam because I'm thinking, September 25th or September 30th, when the statute of limitations ran out on Comey, I think it's going to get hard, really, really hard to be able to get a conviction in that case. And even to get an indictment. I know they're going back again, but look, I have to level with you. I call it like I see it. And when we got wins, we got wins. And when we get, stink bombs, we get stink bombs. And that was a big giant stink bomb because somebody didn't turn in their homework in on time, and consequently, I know I keep using that analogy. You guys are like, she has 3 kids. She's been there before. Yep, you better believe it. And I'm like, if you don't turn it in, or if you do it, but you don't turn it in, it's an F, okay? And I'm sorry, Bondi, but you bombed on that because we got an F, all right? We should have had that indictment. Everything should have been moving forward, but they screwed up. They forgot about the statute of limitations. They left that dude, Eric Siebert, in there way too long, who was like Tim Kaine's buddy, for goodness sakes. Do some due diligence. I know that one's not Pam's fault, but as soon as she got in there, she should have recognized, gee, that's Tim Kaine's buddy. Oh, and what the heck is Comey's son-in-law doing working in the office, for goodness sakes? Anyway, the management occasionally is a little bit sketchy. So I leave that with you just to think about. But I would say, in terms of what we're seeing from all of these people on this attempt to orchestrate some kind of coup, this is bad. And they're trying to scare the living daylights out of our military members. I mean, here's this Senator Gallegos. He did some little TikTok video where he was swearing and swearing and swearing. I'm like, guy, clean up your language, please. Like, I don't need to hear that. He kept it together on CNN, though, the other day. If you can stomach the nonsense that he was saying.
Into Senator Kelly. What is your level of trust in the U.S. military justice system, if it were to get that far, to handle this?
I trust them actually a lot, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, these are professionals. They are also swearing to the Constitution of the United States. They know that there will be fallout and consequences if they are used in a hard way to basically railroad someone like Senator Kelly, because Donald Trump's going to be gone in a couple of years. And if you're part of the military that is going after sitting senators, sitting members of Congress, and part of the weaponization of government, there will be consequences, without a doubt. So I think there's going to be a lot of officers that are going to be part of this potential tribunal, if they want to call it that. They're going to be looking over their shoulders because they know that Donald Trump will be gone and they will not have that protection. They're going to have to do the safest thing possible, which is follow the Constitution of the United States, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, so they basically just told military members, we're going to go after you. So, we were talking about the bank accounts earlier. Anybody that was associated with MAGA, J6 investigation that was all about Arctic frost and like, who can we get in these phone records? Let's just sweep up 400 different MAGA people and get millions and millions of phone records, because it's more important for us to go after Donald Trump than it is to actually, go after the real bad guys. I don't even, like, at this point, I'm so disgusted with the full lot of them. I mean, to think of what was going on and the millions of people that were coming in illegally to this country, and they just sat there and allowed for all of this to happen, guys, it's pretty darn bad. It's really bad. Meanwhile, we're getting more news in McCabe, the former FBI director. What do you know, McCabe? Yeah, remember him? What are they doing on him? There should be an investigation going on into him, I would think. I mean, he had 5 years to fix this thing, and he couldn't do it. And we've learned, of course, as I've reported here, that the evidence against the J6 pipe bomb suspect was just sitting there for years. They had it. It was just languishing. They didn't bother. Now, why would that be? Why would that be? Let's see if McCabe bothers to answer that question. Let's go to his soundbite right now. He went on to CNN, where he thought he'd have a hospitable audience. I imagine he did. I'd like to play this for you here. It's just coming into me, courtesy of one of our producers on the team, David, in real time. Let's listen. Okay, we're going to try that again. Let's listen.
And Director McCabe, I mean, can you help us understand a little bit more of how this might be possible? Because it had felt like a pretty stunning cold case for quite some time. Is there any truth, do you think, to what the Attorney General and those were saying, that it was ignored? Or how do you understand the facts at hand?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to believe, Casey, that it was ignored over the last many years. I think Evans characterized it well. You bring in a new team to look at the evidence you have in a different way, to maybe see things that your investigators who've been beating their heads on this stuff for years haven't seen. But ultimately, what you have here is an incredibly detailed data collection, and I'm sure a lot of that data was collected before this new, refresh took place. But what they've done is they've taken every single piece of the bomb, from the end cap to the pipe to the battery connectors to the wires used, every little piece. They've identified where those things are sold, and they looked at the populations of people that bought each one. And as you layer that information on top of each other, you cross-correlate all that data, a smaller and smaller population of people begins to emerge. And some of the people in that population will be electricians or plumbers or people who would buy those things normally in the course of their work. But eventually your bomber or a small group of potential bombers rises to the top. And then you can do the very localized surveillance sort of work that's required to kind of take that next step. I'm sure some version of that was happening for the entire time they've been working this case. Let's remember it took the FBI 18 years to find the Unabomber, right, after his first bomb in 1978. So these are tough cases and sometimes take a long time.
Really? I don't know. I mean, maybe if you'd had Kash and Dan in there, you would have found the Unabomber earlier too. Maybe it was actually, you need to prioritize things. Again, my complaint on Pam Bondi was that it was not prioritized enough to get to the bottom of the indictment for one James Comey, and that's why you had the statute of limitation expiring. I don't know why they would be sitting on this file and not have the proper information to be able to do the proper due diligence. Now, there are some suggestions out there, and I believe there was a commentator on Fox who said this, that maybe the technology wasn't quite there. I don't know. I mean, they could have done this like 8 months ago, right? 9 months ago. Let's go and listen to this analysis right here.
There is a suspect that is in custody for the pipe bombs that were placed at the DNC and I think the RNC, both on January 6th, the night before January 6th. This is a photograph that they have here. Now, this is 5 years on.
Yeah.
So what do you think the break in the case might have been?
It's really hard to say, but whatever it was, you're going to have these questions of why now? What's been going on for the last 5 years? Now, unless you have something where somebody came forward or something else broke and they got some evidence that they didn't have, you're going to say, were they pressing all along here? Why now? We both know this is going to be heavily politicized, right? Because it's on the eve of J6. Is it tied to J6, et cetera? The thing that I find interesting is that there's reporting out there over the last couple of weeks, and it was rumored online, so a lot of us didn't give it too much credit because it wasn't corroborated yet, but that they had identified this person through the gate. That is the way the person walked. That technology has come a long way, never mind with the AI overlay. And that kind of a thing, maybe it's not enough to say I got probable cause, but it's a pointer. I'm looking to see if it's that or if it was some other mechanism, but this will
very
be
interesting. We were making the comment with David Spunce reporting earlier this hour that it seems to me, and I don't want to speak for Dana, but you had to get a tip from someone.
Yeah.
Because the identity of this person is well conceived.
Yeah.
So maybe identify the hood, maybe the backpack, maybe there's something else on that.
Yeah, there was a lot done apparently with the sneakers. The sneakers were relatively rare as these things go, and so they did a deep dive. I just happened to notice about the sneakers and if they were sold in the Washington, D.C. area. And you can backtrack a lot. We had a case one time we found somebody in Hawaii relative to a backpack that he had bought. So you can do this kind of stuff if you have the investigatory muscle. Maybe it takes a long time. Maybe the sneakers end up being a break. We'll have to see. But fascinating that after 5 years, this is a big win. Let's see if it holds up. You got to make sure that you got the right person, innocent until proven guilty. But if they have nailed this 5 years on, after all the speculation and the political machinations, this is a big win for the FBI.
I love how Paul's like,
It is a big one, and it took 5 freaking years. I'm telling you, Dan knew this was going to be solved.
To get to the bottom of something like January 6th and the pipe bomber case, for example, you need 3 things. You need people, you need information, and you need people with information. I'll allow the public to put that together and just wait, and you'll see. Nothing we're doing, nothing is by accident.
Okay. Anyway, the real reason, I'm just telling you, the real reason is because they didn't care. Okay? That's it. They didn't freaking care. because they wanted everybody to think that somehow it was associated with those crazy MAGA people, and that kind of fit what they were running with, and they had bigger fish to fry. They needed to get Marsha Blackbird's cell phone records. They needed Ted Cruz's cell phone records. They needed to know who they were talking to, for goodness sakes. That is why, okay? That's why. And that's actually why they're pretty damn dangerous for this country. Really, really dangerous. Not to mention that they apparently steal. I mean, just go right out to Minnesota and you see all that. Oh, lots of goodies. Apparently, Ilhan Omar now, it's being reported, has some ties. Oh dear, what are we going to do? So Tim Walz is being looked at, as you well know, in the case of these alleged ties to some of the billion-dollar scammers out in Minnesota. People want to know, why did he look the other way? Why did he seemingly not care? We're going to get to that story. But first, a quick shout out for Conservatives for Lower Healthcare. You know, the drug price has been going up and away. I'll tell you, we get some good reads on inflation, really good reads on inflation. Heck, the president's just delighted with some of them. Let me see if I can show you what he's been putting out there. I mean, he's pushing his $1,000 baby accounts. He's touting the economy, and we've seen consumer spending, right, that's outpacing inflation. Take a look at that. And then a manufacturing renaissance, which he's talking about, is totally underway. Look at those really amazing numbers. Let me slow down, because actually that was a great chart that he sent out. I was going to say tweeted, but he truthed on Truth Social. A manufacturing renaissance is underway. Look at that. I love that. Look at the red. That shows you all the jobs that are growing under him, and we only had like 1/4 of renaissance manufacturing jobs growing when we had Biden in office. You have capital spending that's skyrocketing. That's a great looking chart if I ever saw one, right? And by the way, you think Biden could even read these charts? He never would have been sending these things out. He couldn't even read them. But, despite all of this good stuff, and it is good stuff, we do have some inflation in specific areas. When I say specific, I'm talking drug prices. And that's because of one reason and one reason only, and that is Big Pharma, which has big pockets, and they got lots of money to spend to make sure they get their lobbyists working overtime to ensure that you're going to continue to pay the world's highest prescription drug prices right here in the US of A. So they've already hiked prices on hundreds of medicines so far this year. They even did that right before Donald Trump came to office, while flooding us with billions of dollars worth of misleading ads. Brought to you courtesy of the ABC World News Tonight, NBC Nightly News, CBS Evening News, you name it. Yeah, I'll tell you, you get rid of Big Pharma's advertising budget, you get rid of the nightly news shows. Worse yet, Big Pharma's pushing government mandates designed to stack the deck in their favor. Their goal in Washington is pretty darn simple. They want to escape all the accountability, they want to block free market competition, and they want to jack up outrageous prices, which are going to hit you and every American out there, every small business owner, every family. It's just not right. So Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs and I have partnered on this one to warn you about the Big Pharma agenda that would stick Americans and employers with billions of dollars in high premiums and drug costs. President Trump's not backing down, and I'll tell you, we're not backing down either. So join me in this crusade. Go check out pharmawindfall.com today to help reject these escalating high drug prices. Ilhan Omar is scrambling in real time because there's all kinds of things she has to worry about right now. I mean, she's got the president calling her and her friends garbage. She's got this Minnesota fraud scheme to the tune of $1 billion, and now new allegations that she was kind of chummy with some of the people that are implicated in that gigantic fraud scheme. So that doesn't look very good now, does it, Ilhan? You know about the fraud scheme, right? The $1 billion that was stolen from us taxpayers by this group of Somalian mafiosos that were out of Minnesota. Well, President Trump is really upset about it. People are asking what the heck role Tim Walz had in it, and now they're asking questions about the role that Ilhan Omar might have had in it. Again, before we get to her explanation, it's worth showing you this little gem because the president had some pretty specific words for our friend. Well, hardly our friend, I'm being kind of facetious. Ilhan, just the other day. Watch.
And they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks. And we don't want them in our country. I can say that about other countries too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. So you got a round of applause on that one. And I know a lot of viewers are like, wow, you know, he can be politically incorrect and then he can be really politically incorrect. And that was one of those moments when he was really impolitically correct. But you know what? He doesn't care because he's swinging for the fences. Rich Lowry, we talked about this the other day, and Rich Lowry is someone who's not necessarily a Trump fan, but he's certainly not an Ilhan Omar fan, and he has no interest in having these scammers in our country. He's making the point that she's made a bundle, right? Think about her husband, who's worth apparently like $30 million. He runs what's called a venture capital firm. I told you this, guys, yesterday. I looked at his website. That doesn't look like a venture capital firm to me. You know what a venture capital firm is? They go out there and find new technologies and new things to invest in, and then they buy up these companies and they try and guide them to make them bigger companies. That's what VC firms do. This guy seems to be a straight old-fashioned lobbyist if you look at his website. Venture capital, my you-know-what. Anyway, she's scrambling now because people want to know what she thinks. And according to a new story in the Daily Mail, she might be a little more connected to this than she wants anybody to know. So let me show you what they are reporting at this moment in time. Can we get this onto the screen? I think we can. This is out of the Daily Mail. Ilhan Omar's links to Somali food fraud scheme in Minnesota. Minnesota revealed. So they're saying she's somehow connected to one of the kingpins in this whole thing. New details reveal Ilhan Omar's potential links to those connected in the Somali fraud case in Minnesota. So they were apparently getting like millions and millions and millions of dollars for all of this food that was supposed to be going to serve people who needed it. And it started in March 2020. And it started, because people wanted to do the right thing. And somehow it went terribly wrong. Here's the article again. I'm going to put some more of this on the screen. You see that according to this right now, we've learned that there are new details effectively coming out that indicate that one of the guys that she was friends with, she was friendly enough with him that she decided to host her victory dinner, her victory party there at his restaurant. His name is Salim Ahmad Saeed. He's 33 years old. He's the owner of the Safari restaurant, which is where, according to the Daily Mail, Omar held her 2018 campaign victory party. He was apparently convicted in March 2025 on 21 counts, including wire fraud, federal program bribery, and money laundering. He allegedly pocketed $5 million from the scheme, funneling money through Feeding Our Future for his own enrichments rather than for the child nutrition program he was supposed to be involved with. He's facing decades in prison, and there's apparently like 70 defendants here charged with this sweeping case. They've had 45 convictions so far. Additionally, and this is important, one of her campaign officials pleaded guilty in August to running a fake food site and pocketing lots and lots of money on his own. So, whoa, Ilhan. This is not looking good for you. No wonder she's so upset about Donald Trump being in there. She was asked, not specifically about this case and her connections, but, this case in general, not about her connections. I don't think they'd go that far right on CNN, but they did at least ask her what she made of these revelations. And you want to talk word salad? I mean, she's putting the queen of word salad, Kamala Harris, to shame on this. Watch.
Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
Oh, I see. So it's the government's fault? Because they didn't put in guardrails in? Like, can't possibly be her friend's fault. You know, they just made it too darn easy to take all that money, I guess. And when you make it too darn easy, well, people are just going to steal. So be it, right? Unbelievable. She has no response. She's really, I think, going to have to face the music on this one. And I think a lot of people are going to have to face the music on this one. So Ilhan really doesn't have much of an answer. She's gone after Trump after he went pretty savage on her. She didn't have much of a response for that one either. But I would just say, you know what, Ilhan, enough is enough, right? Like, you know, you got funny friends. Let's just say funny friends. And the White House is not done looking into the possible implications of really bad groups, like terror groups that may have been associated with this whole $1 billion scheme. You saw Caroline Leavitt talking about Tim Walz in Minnesota and the $1 billion and their fears about where some of this money might have gone just the other day.
And jeopardize the safety of law-abiding American citizens. In fact, according to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership. President Trump is putting an end to this dangerous America Last approach. His position is rooted in common sense. In the wake of last week's atrocity.
Yep. I want to turn to another story right now. The Palantir CEO, major tech company, just completely humiliated the New York Times at their own darn conference. This was good. I mean, this was really good. So, you know, we had to listen to, oh, you know, Trump's a fascist. Trump's like, you know, the second coming of Hitler all over again at this CNBC. I don't know, is this a CNBC host who actually also works for the New York Times, Andrew Ross Sorkin, and he had all these people there, and one of them was Alex Karp, who runs Palantir. Again, huge tech company. And there's this really awkward moment because he starts to ask him, he goes down this line of questioning about Donald Trump being a fascist, and Alex is like, had it. He's like, listen, I used to live in Germany. I like spent half my life there. I have actually met really serious fascists. Like, what are you talking about, for goodness sakes? I want to show you the clip.
And I'm curious where you land. Do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
Of course not. I think that's stupid, honestly. And you know what? Again, you can go all day on these stuff. It's honestly idiotic. I grew up half my life in Germany. I spent time with actual fascists. I went and talked to lots of former Nazis. This, like, we have a democratic society, and, you know, he won in a landslide. I don't see any sign of him being, look, of course, I don't agree. Like, it's like, I don't know what the point of these, it's like.
Well, the reason I was asking it was because you did study this was your thesis, and there's a lot of people who have different views about this. Let me just ask you this. So originally, the CIA, do you remember this, was an early investor in QTEL, the venture capital arm, was an early investor in Palantir. This is why I'm asking the question, actually, because I think there's a lot of people who are looking right now at sort of the industrial policy of the country. The country is taking stakes in businesses that they think are important, national security issues and the like. And
but isn't that a classically social democratic view?
Well, maybe it is. But my question to you, it was just going to be, you know, if the White House came to you and said, look, hey, Alex, we really like you. We think you're important to this country. You're a very important part of this. And if we're going to continue to give you these contracts, we want a piece of the action. What you would think of that?
I mean, we'll cross that road when we get there. My understanding is people who are in dire trouble go to the White House and ask for money, and they say, we've made terrific business decisions and we want your help. Why wouldn't the American people participate?
Yeah, By the way, the New York Times put that out, which is really interesting because I don't think it necessarily made the reporter look so good. I mean, look, there are interesting questions to ask, especially from a guy like Alex Karp, right? Who's sitting there saying, I'm sick of it. Like, I'm just tired of it. I've actually studied real fascism and lived in Germany and spoke to real Nazis. And I don't need you constantly with this nonsense. But it was like, pick on the New York Times day, because it wasn't just Alex Karp, the big tech CEO, going after him. You had Besant, really, really smart. Like, this guy took down the Bank of England, okay? Like, he is a smart guy, smart financier, okay? And he's there talking to Andrew Ross Sorkin, and he's just had it. At some point, he just levels him. It was fantastic. So I'm just saying, I think that poor Andrew had a really tough day. He needs to get better pay, you know? I mean, Rachel Maddow's making $25 million for one show a week. Andrew, you need a new agent.
The question is, how should is this is like a new is this a new normal?
That Andrew, there's no new normal, and you know I can tell you that I actually don't read the New York Times anymore. But sometimes I do watch CNBC, but you know occasionally.
Wait, let's go back.
Sometimes I do watch CNBC. But you know, occasionally people send me articles, and like there's just this fever swamp. And you know, you're now a pop historian with 1929, and you know, in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the New York Times is no longer the paper of record. You can't go. I read this article.
Kind of feels that way right now, right? Like the New York Times is no longer the paper of record. After all, they were the ones that kept feeding us BS about the Wuhan virus that somehow wasn't created in that Wuhan lab. And then they fed us the BS about Hunter Biden's laptop being misinformation from the Russians. And they fed us more BS about Tulsi Gabbard being a Russian spy because she became a threat to one Hillary Clinton, along with more BS about the infamous dossier, right? Like we can go on and on and on all day. I don't think the New York Times is by any means the paper of record. And, you know, maybe it's gotten worse lately, but you guys were saying the other day, I was looking in your comments, and one of you guys pointed out, I think it was I've Gone to Play Tennis, that, good name, good handle. One of you pointed out, like, they were awful even back during World War II when they weren't reporting on the atrocities that were going on in Germany. They just chose not to report that. So in some ways, they've kind of had this deep state tie all along. And now what do you know? We got a whole different world out here. We got a whole different world where like we can actually communicate. And you know, hopefully the algorithm likes us. So make sure you give a thumbs up. But we can get a message out there in a very different way. And you have more diversity in your news sources. And that's amazing, right? Really, really, really amazing. So no, the New York Times, I would argue, is no longer, it's not in 30 or 40 years. It's currently is no longer the paper of record. They are wrong way too often. Their bias is reflected every single day. Let's continue watching.
Like President Trump is slowing down. President Trump's mental capacity, it is 100% fake. That like he only called me twice at 2 a.m. last week instead of 3 times.
You're saying he called you? I believe that he called you at 2 or 3 in the morning.
That, you know, like that whole narrative. You had what was one of the greatest scandals of all time. That the coverage of the Biden administration, Joe Biden's diminished capacity, and the cover-up.
And that's why it's probably fair to raise these questions.
Where was the New York Times? We just had a 3-hour cabinet meeting yesterday, Andrew. For 10 months, the Biden administration did not have a cabinet meeting. How are you going to invoke the 25th Amendment if the cabinet secretaries never see the president, which they didn't? That, you know, I hear from people in the Treasury building that I see President Trump more in a day than my predecessor saw Joe Biden in half a year.
Pretty amazing. And that's the truth of it, right? Because you get somebody who's really involved right now and is actually a lot healthier, frankly. I'm not a doctor. Before the New York Times comes after me, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you, we all saw what we saw, and we know and knew what was going on. I mean, it just took the rest of the Dems and liberal media a while to catch up to what was pretty darn obvious. Very obvious. If you have not gone to 76 Research, you should. Let me put that on there. You know, this is my company. My other company, I actually have a channel over there too. And whenever you catch a show there, it's a big deal because we're so small. We're so small that, I mean, we only have like 2,000 subs. We're so small that if you ever make a comment, we definitely see it, okay? And by we, I mean myself, I see it, and my colleague there at 76 Research. But we have a newsletter that is not that small. It's actually quite big, and I encourage you to go and get that newsletter because we have a lot of good ideas for you and a lot of good research on this market right now. You can use code word dollar, DOLLAR. Maybe it's a good gift for somebody, right, for Christmas, somebody that you know that should be investing, that you want to start investing in these markets. Go to 76research.com, my company, use code word dollar. I also put the link in the show notes for you. But really, I mean, I just sort of, I know it's been kind of a tough go lately for people, right? You're looking at what happened in midterms, and there's concern because looks like Comey got off. I know they're coming back, but you know, I'm leveling with you on that one. I don't think that was handled properly. I think you can get Letitia, but not necessarily Comey now. And I think there's a lot of frustration out there that things are not happening fast enough. And I understand that, and I share that frustration, believe me. But this was a win today. This is good. This is good for Kash. This is good for Bongino. It's shocking to me that they had all this information there and they had it for 5 years and they didn't do squat with it. But then when we consider that we really had the B team involved, the serious B team, I get it. Right? It was not in their interest, perhaps, to be solving this. And so they just didn't bother because they had bigger fish to fry. They wanted to make sure that they prevented Donald Trump from ever getting in again, I guess, because he was going to expose it all, expose everything. And that's what we're dealing with now. So, Cat Crazy Sam making the point, yeah, Comey got off on that charge, but there will be more. Possibly. I mean, they had him on possibly lying to Congress, but now, Cat Crazy Sam, you're not wrong because Tulsi Gabbard has been digging up a whole lot of stuff. Kash Patel with his burn bags, right, that were found in the secret room there with lots of material. They are going through all of this, and I think that there are still going to be consequences for a lot of people. Could he perjure himself again on the stand? Possibly. But I think to Cat Crazy Sam's point, there is some more that needs to be understood and discovered. Billy Box, thank you for the nice comments. I really think that it's understandable, right? That we're frustrated. Ryan V 72 saying we want our country back. Of course we do. We want our country back, and it's taking longer than we'd like, but we're going to get there. And look, you know, they're trying to spin Tennessee and Nashville as a loss. And I'm going to tell you, that was a win. That was a win. And don't let them try to demoralize you. Because we can't be demoralized. We are winning, and we're going to continue winning. And it's really important that we do. You know that. I know that. Anyway, thank you for being here on the channel. Make sure you spread the word, share the show, let everybody know. Make sure, as Cat Crazy Sam said, when you sign up, hit the alert button, the bell, for all the stuff. That way you will always know when I'm here live. It is wonderful to have you. Have a wonderful, great evening, and we're back again tomorrow.